returned!
Hooray!
Which means the tag division is back again.
Never went anywhere, baby.
I sort of did.
Glass Bros. McRiddle. The Highland Bros.
Honestly, McRiddle was...
Very funny.
That's the best team name
There
I've
you
heard.
go.
Actually, I saw did someone in the live chat that also called them the Airheads,
Yeah, I like the Airheads.
which is very good because that's actually where Drew McIntyre's from, not
So it
Edinburgh
is.
or Glasgow. Welcome to the WrestleTalk Podcast review of Raw. I'm Luke Owen, DAD. I'm joined by the Professor, the Truth, Dan Layton, and this is the WrestleTalk Podcast review of Monday Night Raw. Please press the subscribe button if it's your first time here. Give us a little thumbs up as well and leave a comment down below with what you thought of this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. Or, join our live chat and let us know what you thought of the show if you're watching live. And if you are watching live, you're in the mood to click some links. WrestleTalk.com/support. Getting your thoughts about Monday Night Raw, Kevin Owens' return, the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley, and a whole host of other different topics. And we'll read out all of them above the $5 US amount before the end of the show.
We're in monochrome today.
We are?
Yeah, I just realised. We're both wearing
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
grayscale.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
I feel like I've regressed a
mean
little
to.
bit somewhat.
Go on then.
Like, I went through a period, in the summer season hit.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm buying
You
shirts.
did.
And
You had some lovely shirts.
I bought some new shirts and that.
Yeah.
And then in the last week, 2 weeks or so, I've gone back. Nah, I'm just wearing t-shirts again.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just going back to it.
Well, that's because the summer died.
And I was being I actually got told by a friend that I've really embraced my dad life.
Is that an insult or a compliment?
As a compliment.
Okay.
I'm starting to dress like a dad now
Mm.
because I was, dressing nicely as opposed to just wearing, the t-shirts that I've been wearing since I was, 14.
Yeah.
Like this one.
Mm.
And yet I've sort of just gone against that. I was wearing plain white tees
Yeah.
and nice shirts and stuff. And yet here
Yeah,
I am.
lovely
I'm just
shirts.
no, I'm just going to put my Chewbacca t-shirt on.
The day you come in an ill-fitting polo shirt tucked into a pair of chinos, that's the day you fully embraced your dad life.
But I'm not going to be embracing my dad life for this episode of Monday Night Raw. How can I segue?
Go on. No,
wait
deep in it.
I've got a better one.
Okay.
Someone who also embraces the dad life is Kevin Owens. He's an excellent father, and he returned on this episode of Raw.
I hope you stretched before that reach, but yes, he absolutely did. Yes.
So I actually wrote down here, in a nice change of pace, Sami Zayn opens the show, and then I found out it's because they're in Quebec, and I was like, oh, that's why. Because they had a video package at the start based around Judgment Day, so I was
Yes.
fully expecting that music to hit, and then to come down to the ring, and Rhea Ripley to be like, we run Monday Night Raw, and then Finn Balor to be like, we are the all rise for the Judgment Day. Sami Zayn came in, and I was like, oh, brilliant. I feel refreshed. It's a different change of pace. And then I was like, oh, it's because we're in Quebec. And then almost immediately the Judgment Day came and I was
Yes.
like, yep, there it is. Now I'm watching Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I mean, I still found it to be a really refreshing change of pace.
It was
And
awesome.
I mean, that pop from that crowd was unreal stuff. It was so, heartwarming to see. They wouldn't let him speak. It was like, do you remember when Roman
beautiful.
beat The Undertaker?
The booze.
The booze. It was the diametric opposite of that, and it was even more so than in Montreal when he before Elimination Chamber. It felt joyous. It felt buoyant. There was a wide shot of the crowd, which I remember. Tom Scott, the video maker, a YouTuber. He made a video a few years ago that was very much for him about It'll Be Alright on the Night, which was a UK bloopers show.
Great
And
show.
it was about what he considers the best title sequence in the history of popular television. And it's hard to disagree with him because it's so fantastic. It's a wonderful video, a heartwarming video. I recommend everybody go and seek it out. But in it, he sort of talks about production tricks and things that people like to do. And generally speaking, if you hear an audience but you don't see one, it's because the audience is recorded. Whereas producers like to show off what they can. And I've thought about that a lot over the past few years with when it was WWE having fewer people, lately Collision and Dynamite having fewer people in their audiences, and the ways they'll frame it so that you don't see the empty seats. They showed all of this arena for as much of the show as they could. It was rammed.
There was a point where Sami Zayn pointed at his watch, as if talking to a member of production at ringside to be like, we're going long here.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware, you might want to tell people in Gorilla this segment is not going to time.
And it was also interesting because he spoke this week about the bitter pill it was to swallow when he didn't win the championship. And I guess I've wondered when I was thinking about that, because Triple H basically said, what are you talking about? You main evented the show, and it's really important hot angle. You've done some incredible work. That crowd love you. Be proud of yourself kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, but it is bitter to think I'm not going to win the title. I'm not the guy they want to put the belt on. And I have wondered about his momentum because it has been this difficult and tricky thing where Kevin's not been on the show.
Yeah, I feel that Sami has lost not all of the momentum.
No, but
he
he's
does
stalled.
not. He does not. Yeah, I think he's stalled. He does not feel as hot as he did going into Elimination Chamber or even going into WrestleMania. This show notwithstanding, in your hometown.
Yeah. So this is the interesting thing because I was like, I don't think Saraya's going to get this pop at home. Do you know what I mean? I think Will Ospreay might. But I don't think like a Saraya is. So this goes to show that there is a love for Sami Zayn that still endures, even though that it's his hometown. Yeah.
Well, that's because Saraya's not from London.
It's Norwich.
Yeah, exactly. She's from Norwich.
Nobody likes Norwich.
That's why she's got webbed feet.
That's... I apologise to the people of Norwich.
I don't. Let's be Avenue.
Come on! Let's be Avenue. We're 12 man here. Anyway, sorry for the Americans.
I of course don't actually think that about Norwich. Norwich is a beautiful part of the country. It's where Alan Partridge is from.
But you did a sports reference.
I did do a sports
reference. I'm so proud of
you.
you.
Thank you very much. It was one from 20 years ago, but I did make a sports reference.
And it was specifically, it was a Delia Smith reference is what it was. Anyway, point being, I think there was a real... this felt for me like, oh yeah, Sami still has that love from the crowd. And it was really nice to see, and it got me in a really good mood for the show, which is what you want for your opening segment.
Yeah.
And yes, then the Judgment Day came out.
Judgment Day came out. I've got my issues with the Judgment Day story on this episode of Raw, which we'll get into in a little bit. But like this segment was not one of those where I had my issue with the Judgment Day storyline, because really this was here to set up one thing and one thing alone, which is the Judgment Day surround the ring, and Sami's like, "What, you thought I came alone?" Out comes Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens clears house. They absolutely batter the dicks off everyone. And then he gives Damian Priest the stunner, sends them packing, challenges any two members of Judgment Day to a tag match in the main event of Raw. Like, as a return, the right place to do it. You know, it grew up down the road and all this sort of stuff. Absolutely, this was the show to bring Kevin Owens back on because you're going to get the biggest pop possible. Yeah. And it totally worked. And this crowd... good for a lot of the nights, not so much in the Trish segment, but
wasn't their fault.
We'll get to that in a second. Well, they were very
what they did was their fault, but I don't think them arriving at that point was their fault.
No, we'll get there. But they were very mean about that. They segment. But like this was a crowd that wanted to see Sami and KO, and they got to see Sami and KO, and they got to see them in the main event. So like as a segment, this was a big old thumbs up from me.
Well, we'd had the reports that Kevin did a dark match at SmackDown last week in Toronto. So you kind of were like, and also the fact that they hadn't stripped them of the titles, they worked it into an angle. There was these question marks about how serious was the injury. Good to know, not so serious that he's going to be out of action for a really long time. And yeah, I was just thrilled to sort of see the pop.
Genuinely so thrilled to see Kevin Owens back. I didn't realize until I was kind of watching this and I was writing my edited review for the WrestleTalk News how much I've missed him.
Yeah, and it felt like such a babyface return as well in every sense of the word, like them speaking French. What I loved, there was a really amazing moment where Rhea Ripley, like Sami says something in French or Kevin says something in French, she kind of looks around, she's like, I don't know what they're saying. Like, and it was really funny. I really enjoyed it. To the point where I actually got a little bit emotional. I probably was a bit tired because I got emotional later on as well, but we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, I thought it was a really effective babyface return, heel, proper old school wrestling,
So we're getting to the main event, and this is where I will now present my problem with the Judgment Day story.
Okay.
I really liked last week's episode, the addition of the Judgment Day story.
Yeah.
Because they were telling this really, I think, quite effective little story, which is that without Priest, Rhea, and Dom realizing, JD McDonough is helping them win. And he is actually almost a glue that is keeping this fractured team together. And last week, he completely succeeded in his mission, and he got that group standing together tall. They ruled the roost. Literally, like they always say, we're the Judgment Day, we run Monday Night Raw. They actually did on last week's episode of Raw. Balor, Priest, Dom, Rhea, they all stood tall. No JD. JD didn't want that. He was just on the outside, biding his time, waiting for his entry into the Judgment Day. He's just there to support Balor. Judgment Day, that was literally our headline last week. Judgment Day back on the same page, ... again. Because prior to that, they had fallen out, but then got back on the same page, and then they'd fallen out and got back on the same page. They were back on the same page again here. the next segment of this show is them arguing because they're not on the same page. And I described this in my edited review as they are Ross and Racheling this team. And it is either...
Who's Ross and who's Rachel? Go on. Snap judgment.
I think Balor's Ross.
Okay, right. That works for me, yeah.
I think Damian Priest is too pretty to not be Rachel.
Okay, gotcha. I see what yeah.
But I think I am really done with, and like I kind of felt like Rhea Ripley on this episode of Raw, where Rhea Ripley just was like, I am so sick and tired of you guys not being on the same page. I'm like, me too, Rhea, me too. Can I just have like 2 weeks of them being on the same page? Because clearly they don't want to break the group up. Like they have got they've got no plans to split this group up, nor should you. You split up the Bloodline. You keep teasing splitting up Imperium. You keep teasing splitting up Damage Control. Don't split up the Judgment Day as well. So they are not going to split this group up. So why not just have them be on the same page again? And like you have this payoff that you have a bit with JD later in the main event, which we'll get onto in a second. But because they literally, like, the video package ended with them standing tall and together. And the next segment, they're arguing. And I'm like, well, what was the point of last week's show then? Because we've actually just taken 2 steps back. Either we've taken 2 steps back, that's bad, or last week didn't matter, that's also bad.
I completely hear that. I agree. And I think it's a sort of example of when you do a program at a certain level and it stays at that level. We see another example of that later on in the show. But it's almost like they had a couple of opportunities. In fact, two pay-per-views in a row now. We've gone into it, both Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, being like, it could be really interesting what they do as a result of this, like where they could go with that, what they could do with that. And what they've done, sort of both times, is instantly go at this breakup thing. Rather than seeding it, rather than let it simmer, rather than let it be, it's like break up but they're back together, break up but they're back together. Like it's all, as you say, Ross and Rachel. And I think what's frustrating is that it does make it feel like, well, what are we doing? Like, do you have a plan? Do you want to do anything? Is there forward momentum? In the second series of Lost, this is an analogy just coming into my head at the moment.
It's fine. It's really where the show falls off the rails.
Well, because the first 4 episodes of the series are the exact same thing from 4 different perspectives. And it made you feel 4 weeks in like, I haven't watched a new part of this show yet. Like, this is all the same stuff. And it's like, we've not got anywhere because they had to stretch it out, pad out because they didn't know how long they were going. Then they finally find out, oh, we're doing 3 more series. And that's when they wrap it up. But for some people, they'd already dropped off the cliff. You need to keep momentum. You don't have to make huge leaps each episode. You do need to keep the build going, keep the momentum going. And it's a bit frustrating that we've seen this briefcase whoopsie daisy
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row.
Also, they keep losing.
Yeah.
Like Balor lost at SummerSlam. Balor lost again the week after. They lost last week. They lost again here. Like they're beating this team like a drum.
And I'm always gonna be thrilled to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes be your main event. Like, go off the air with them celebrating a win. Send the crowd home happy. We've talked about that a few times. But I'm looking at Payback, and I'm seeing a card, and we're talking upstairs in the office about like, okay, so like the Payback card hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. What are they doing? Is it this trios match again?
Well, yeah, I don't think they'll judge. I think maybe they'll do Judgment Day versus Owens and Zayn for the tag titles. And the only reason I can give you here is because Owens and Zayn lost the main event by DQ because JD throws the briefcase in. Owens catches it and clocks Balor with it because Balor had asked JD to throw him the briefcase. Technically, the Judgment Day beat the tag champs. Also, I think, if I might be right in this, they pinned the tag champs shortly after they won the belts as well. They never followed up on that. So you could make the argument next week, and this is kind of my fancy booking brain, this is sort of like what I think the story could be next week, is that JD can literally say to them, I got you your first win as a team since SummerSlam. And that win is now going to get you a tag title shot going into Payback. The problem there is that you're still going to be a fractured thing, and then you'll just have a fractured argument at Payback and stuff. Whereas you could have just had a few weeks of them being on the same page, and then maybe you do the will they, won't they thing again. But
and then my other problem there is that Cody doesn't have a match. That was where I was trying to get to.
Well, yeah, I think, I don't know, Bray Wyatt turns, and then like it's Cody. That's Cody's next program, but he's not actually on the Payback card. Not everyone has to be on the card. This is what I keep getting told about All In.
No, but your biggest star does, I would argue.
Yes, but this is proof, if proof be need be, that there was no plan for Cody after that's WrestleMania.
So that's what I'm getting at. Like, I'm not trying to catch you out. I'm not trying to get you a wrong answer. It just is a thing of like, that's an example of where this kind of lack of seeding and plotting and going somewhere is kind of, we can't see this match again, can we? Unless you do, in which case, what are we doing here?
Well, unless you do it as an 8-man tag, I guess, and with JD on Judgment Day side, and then it's just like, and who will the fourth man be for Team Good Guys?
Yeah,
the Team
Seth
Good Guys that keep winning. By the way,
I will say I loved Brie Ripley's line where she was like, "Right, we've got to decide who it's going to be. It can't be me, because I've got a match with Candice." Yeah. So it was like, I'm already busy. Otherwise, it would be me.
She did slam Kevin Owens in the main event. She did. I was delighted by. But yeah, like I am, and I was looking at the live chat beforehand, and there was a big chat there about, I'm kind of sick of seeing Judgment Day in the main event of Raw, because there was a bit of discourse last night on the old Twitter machine about how Gunther and Gable should be the main event of this episode of Raw. And then someone was like, I think it might have been Backup Hangman, was like, no, the main event will be Judgment Day versus some combination of Sammy, Cody, and Seth.
Yeah.
Because that's what it always is. Like, every episode of Raw ends with the Judgment Day versus assortment of good guys or singular good guy. And that's what we got again here tonight. So when they announced it, I was like, I'm glad that Kevin Owens is back.
Yeah.
But also, I have seen these lads and Judgment Day a lot since Mania, and it doesn't fit, and it feels like this Judgment Day storyline is just not going anywhere, because they are either they're off the boil, they're on the boil, they are in bed with each other, they're not in bed with each other, and there's never feels like the plot actually takes a step forward.
Yeah, and that's their fault for not doing a little gradient with it.
Yes,
otherwise known as build.
But yes, so I thought the opening segment was great. I'm not a big fan of the Judgment Day stuff, but the main event, like, you can't deny the main event was great.
Yeah.
Because the main event was Owens and Zayn, and Rhea Ripley would just come out and be like, look, I'm going to make this decision for you. And she comes out, and it's Dom.
She literally drags them like a mother.
Drags them out like Mammy.
Yeah.
And it's Balor and it's Priest. And she's like, you two work it out. And I'm like, you did this last week. And then so they are the tag team. And it's quite short. It doesn't go very long, because JD McDonough runs down. He throws Balor the briefcase, but Kevin Owens intercepts it, clocks Balor, referee catches them, DQ. Brawl breaks out. Adam Pearce comes out, and what Cody Rhodes says, there's 3 of us, there's 3 of you. I smell a trios match, player. And Adam Pearce came out and said, yeah, let's do a trios match. So the actual main event was Seth, KO, and Cody versus the Judgment Day. And it was your standard Raw main event 6-man tag with an incredibly hot crowd, and it was good fun.
Yeah.
And the good guys won.
And the crowd went home happy, and I have 0 notes for it. I didn't take any notes.
I've got here Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes versus Judgment Day. I have 4 words for my notes. The good guys win.
Yeah. And on the one hand, if I were being charitable, I could make the argument. It's like, well, that was nice. Like, again, send the crowd home happy. It was a good opening to the show and a good ending to the show, in terms of crowd involvement and energy and pizzazz and all the rest. But like, I do feel like it would be more effective if there had been I hate to use the X Factor word, journey.
Oh, a journey.
A journey.
Here's an interesting fact. I can't verify this one, so maybe someone can do a bit of investigating on this one. But apparently, Matt here says the first KO Sammy Cody match against Judgment Day was on the 19th of June. Some combination of those 6 have faced off in every Raw since, bar 1.
Interesting.
That surely can't be true.
And yeah, I can kind of see it.
But yeah, I think back and I'm like, but I think that is true.
Yeah, and I'm just going to repeat myself, so I'll not, because that's what we're criticizing is the WWE repeating themselves, and I'm just repeating myself about do a story.
Well, let's get into what you thought of this. I mean, maybe we could do a poll. Actually, I don't think Mod Mother is around, so maybe we won't do a poll. Do you know what, Discord? No, I won't. I don't want to change my name.
Why didn't you just deal with it?
Because I'm not. I don't want to give Discord the satisfaction.
Okay, but
I'm not losing this battle.
It's affecting me now when I open my iPad
Because you're logged in as me. But let's get into what you thought of this show. Please do WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out all your comments above the $5. And Kevin here says, a proper laugh when Rhea said, we need to see who'll be in the match. I've got a match with Candice, so it won't be me. Awesome to see KO back. I hope the tag division gets better focus in next week with the New Day back and the Street Profits push. That was genuinely the sense I got from this with the Kevin Owens return was. And then the following match you got from that.
Yeah.
Oh, a tag division.
And the way that match works,
yeah,
like
exactly.
what went down.
It was all about building up a tag division. I'm like, yeah, awesome. We have a tag division again. Because the tag titles have been on hold since the Saudi show.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. They certainly haven't defended it.
Yeah, Kevin and Sammy, because obviously Kev gets injured.
Yeah.
But it's not like him and Kev were going into a big program anyway.
They were at Money in the Bank, but they were in the Skybox. So
so it was just... Yeah, well, they did Pretty Deadly, didn't they, on the SmackDown beforehand?
They did do Pretty Deadly.
They did do it.
And that's true. I was there. That was a really good match. I enjoyed myself very much.
But it's not like they were in a program with Pretty Deadly.
No, Pretty Deadly won a tag team title shot. And so pretty much since Money in the Bank, there has been no... But that's the period where Kevin's been injured, and they've got to close out the story with the Judgment Day, which has been going on for ages, but they've got to close it out. And then, yeah, we'll look at a tag feud.
Yeah.
They do need to lose it at some point because, I mean, maybe they don't. Maybe they just go on a big old run because they're stars.
Yeah.
And what do you do with them when they're not together?
Yeah, I guess. Probably feud them together.
Yeah, why not?
Hector has been a member for 19 months in a row, said, now that Quebec boys come back, where does the division go from here? Well, I think you could certainly put them into a feud with New Day.
Yeah.
I think them versus Viking Raiders would be pretty fun. Obviously, there's Street Profits over on SmackDown.
Yes, because they hold both belts.
Yeah, you got Judgment Day in the main events if you want to do some stuff with Balor and Priest or Balor and Dom or whatever. Brawling Brutes are there. You could even do like Vinci and Kaiser. Finally, give them something to do.
Well, that's interesting that you say that.
Because they comment that Gunther makes on this show.
Well, kind of the way they're looking at each other as well. It's the idea of stepping up, and maybe the answer of stepping up is stepping up against being a tag team. Like, that's interesting. Yeah.
And there was another tag team I thought, DIY.
Yeah, there was a DIY mention here.
There's a DIY mention on this show, so I could see, DIY being a big program going into the latter half of the year. Kevin again says, during the Ms. Tozawa segment, I had a big LA Night isn't over, the yeah chant is over vibes. I hope I'm wrong. Gable's celebration was very Lex Luger-like, but the match was awesome and it can build to a good story at Payback.
I mean, we'll get to should we go to those segments when we go to those segments?
Yes. I don't think I agree with the LA Night isn't over, the yeah chant is over. I don't agree with that because that's the same argument of like, Bryan Danielson's not over, the yes chant is over.
Yes.
But it was, WWE were proven wrong on that fact when they tried to give the yes chant to Big Show and it didn't get over, and they gave it to Stephanie McMahon and it didn't get over.
Yeah.
Bryan was over.
Yeah.
Danielson was over.
I mean, like, people still chant what, but it's not.
Yeah.
The same thing, I think.
Right, well, let's get into the show itself because Kevin touched on a few points there, which we were going to go on to as we get through the rest of this show. Please do continue getting in your chats, WrestleTalk.com/support. We did have tag action, and that's kind of what I've meant by like sort of the tag division feeling reignited because you had Kevin Owens return, and then you immediately went into a tag match that almost had title ramifications around it because of the promo that the two had last week.
Yeah.
And it was New Day versus Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle. Man, it felt like a real anti-pop for Riddle. Like, New Day got a pop coming out, Drew got a pop coming out, but man, Riddle came out to like almost nothing.
Because he's a dweeb with his little bongos and his flip-flops.
Well, I mean, this match will not help that in any case.
Interesting.
Because the story of this match is Drew is great and Matt sucks. Because Matt was worked over the whole match, and then they went to build to the hot tag with Drew. Drew got pulled off the apron by the Viking Raiders, and then Matt Riddle got pinned.
Yes, interesting though, because I was quite intrigued by the crowd's reactions because I felt like the crowd were kind of into the hot tag Riddle Drew team. Yeah, I thought Riddle had some really good offenses.
They were into Drew getting in the ring.
I thought they were into Riddle as well, personally, from where I was sat. And I thought it was interesting because it was like they didn't know how to react to the New Day. because the New Day is stopping the hot tags, they're playing the heel.
And they were in the heel corner.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting one for me. And I don't know. I got the vibe that they weren't. It's one of those things where Matt Riddle as a person I don't care about, but then he starts wrestling, and I'm like, yeah.
Well, I won't say it's not. I'm not talking about much of the crowd reaction, just the actual booking of this match.
Oh right, that's
because Matt Riddle didn't do a lot of offensive moves in this match. He just got beaten up and then pinned. The only time this team was actually on top was when Drew was in the ring and beating up the New Day, and in some cases using Matt Riddle to beat up the New Day,
which I thoroughly enjoyed.
It was great. He did the spot where he like suplexed Woods and suplexed Kingston over the top rope to the floor, and then he grabs Matt Riddle and suplexed him over the top onto Woods. It was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think this did Matt any favors, particularly then because the Viking Raiders get in and they beat everyone up. So with 3 guys, they couldn't take on 2 of Viking Raiders, but 1 Drew McIntyre could beat them up. And I said in my review, and this is quite hyperbolic, I do appreciate, it proper reminded me of those times in like 06, 08, 09, when John Cena or Triple H or Shawn Michaels was in the tag division, and the whole person was like, we're just going to beat up the tag division. Like there was a match where literally John Cena actually Triple H and Shawn Michaels just beat up all of the tag division in one segment. Well, and that's the segment. The feeling I got from here was that Drew's actually a star, and he's a star above the tag division.
So I agree with you, but I don't.
The way that this segment was that, as I said, perhaps this is just like PTSD, not to make light of that, of course, but I'm trying to use that as like a broad general term. From that period of time when it was just like the tag division sucks and the bigger stars beat them up. Randy Orton was really guilty for it as well. And again, it's always the booking that does this.
No, I know what you're saying. And I think what is different for me is I did feel that Drew was looking like a big star. And I did feel that there were moments in there of like, I still think it's like seeding towards Drew having a heel turn or like a moment. It's like the RK Bro heel turn we've been wanting, but we never got.
He's 100% turning heel next
right.
week.
But during the match, Xavier said, like, you aren't even a real tag team. And then later on in the show, we get a segment between them where they sort of do say, you know what, you've actually got something. You gave us a good match there. We also saw the Viking Raiders come out for once. They didn't hate an interference ending. There was something for me in it where I was like, yeah, I kind of see a tag team division forming. And then, yeah, later on we had other ones. And as we were saying in the UltraChat, I almost, I'm like, it's doing, in contrast to what you're saying there about it buries the tag division, which you did used to happen back then. This time it feels to me like it's more like setting the table for a tag division that Riddle really wants to be a part of, but Drew is ultimately going to betray him and not allowing it.
Well, I take that point. Like, yeah, because I think
it's still lifting it.
Overall, this is a net positive for me because this is about building up that tag division. But maybe it's just because Drew did all the work for his team and then Matt Riddle just got beaten up and then pinned. That makes me think like, oh yeah, Matt Riddle just sucks. And then Drew's the only one that can actually save them from the Viking. And I was like, well, maybe everyone sucks and it's just actually Drew that's good. But again, that's maybe like me projecting onto it than actually as being presented on screen. But really, my criticism there doesn't matter because Drew and Matt are not part of this tag division.
That's it.
Because they're going to have a match next week.
Yeah.
Like Drew said, we'll do one more match. Drew's likely turning next week. I think they could do a nice swerve and actually have be Riddle's the one that turns. And it leads off into a singles feud and takes them away from the tag division, which means that's not really a problem.
I think Drew should be the one to turn. I know it would be interesting to do something different.
Just a swerve.
For me, it's setting Drew up for better things.
Yeah. Not Kathy Kelly interviewed JD McDonough, who said that he wants to make Judgment Day stronger. And Finn walks up and he's about to say that he thinks that JD should join the group when Rhea walks in to say that they need to decide who's being in the match.
Not Kathy Kelly's really impressing me. I think she's doing a really good job. And I think good on you, Jackie. Well done.
Absolutely. Got a promo for Shayna Baszler that had some Mortal Kombat style graphics in it, which
she's not Kathy Kelly, to be clear. Sorry, I just had a moment where I thought like, I'll put you over, but you want Kathy. Very few people are, but anyway. Sorry, Shayna.
Yes, we got a promo for Shayna Baszler, and then we got the Gable Gunther segment of this show.
Yeah.
Because you had a recap of Gable and Vinci last week and Gunther and Otis last week, and then you had a promo from Gunther, this video promo about how he is close to beating the Honky Tonk Man's record, and it's time time's almost working against him, but he's the ring general and that doesn't matter. And then Gable cuts this promo with Byron Saxton. They're talking about how this is the biggest match of his career. Like, you've been working 10 years to get to this point where you might be able to win singles gold. Maxine was so great in this segment, so affable to be like, look, if anyone, no one has worked out how to beat Gunther, but if anyone can do it, it's Master Gable.
This was great in it as well. He did a similar thing of like, you pulled me out of... I think I was just tired because this got me emotional as well.
Yeah.
So I probably was just a bit sleepy this morning. But I
thought this was awesome.
It was great.
And then the match itself, hot take, everyone. Chad Gable is a great wrestler. Gunther is a perfect wrestler. And they had an incredible match.
I think you need to calm down.
I really liked, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And even the finish.
Yeah, I like the finish.
I get the arguments of the Lex Luger. I think
I don't. You're now the third or fourth person to mention this. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So there's a moment when at SummerSlam Lex Luger beats Yokozuna by countout.
Yeah.
But doesn't win the title because he wins by countout. Yeah. But they act like he did win the title because they drop like lots of confetti down. Obviously, that's a much more like overblown thing. But the argument, like, WWF's presentation of it was like he managed to beat Yokozuna. Like, no one beat Yokozuna, but Lex Luger managed to do it. But the actual like the optics of it are that man is celebrating like he won the title, but he didn't. And at the end of this, Chad Gable is celebrating like he's just won the IC title. But he hasn't because he's won via countout. And it's sort of like, when I was watching, I was like, oh, this celebration is almost just a bit... Don't get me wrong, love the finish because I think it builds to a really interesting stipulation you can do at Payback. So I'm not down on this. I actually think this is great. But the celebration, I can see why it's easy to make fun of the celebration because you almost could have dropped confetti down. He was so happy about it. And they were really going to have a conversation. He beat Gunther. No one's done this in a year and a half. And I'm like, yeah, but... he didn't win the title, though, did he? Who's the real winner here? It's Gunther. He still got the belt.
I didn't hate it, and I actually I don't agree that the celebration was too much. I thought the celebration was actually, for me, the right amount. I do agree that it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, but you didn't win the title, and you should at least acknowledge that in some way. Like they did.
Gable should be celebrating because he beat Gunther, but should be sort of mouthing off to him now, being like, I've got you. I've got you in this, that, and the other, as opposed to being like he was holding the belt away from celebrating like he'd won the belt.
I want to give my take on the whole thing because I have a lot of feelings on this match, which was that, first of all, it was incredible. And it was really interesting to read Gunther's thoughts on A, the championship, and B, the art of wrestling over the weekend. He talked about how it's the man that makes the title. He talked about how he wants to make this, he needs to step up the same way he did with the NXT UK title. But also, he was talking about, essentially, he talked about flippy wrestlers looking for attention rather than taking the time to get your strikes over, your simple work over. And when you get that over, it has almost more of an impact, and they believe in you, which was something, he's the first wrestler that has ever said flippy nonsense is rubbish and have us all go, yeah, I'll listen to you because you're a perfect wrestler. And I was thinking about that a lot while I was watching the match because there was such brilliant wrestling going on here. Like, there was chain wrestling right at the beginning with Chad holding on to the face lock. There was the double underhook delayed suplex from Gunther to Chad that I thought was just glorious to see. Gable doing a brilliant sell job. At the one point, Gunther tried to whip him into the corner and he couldn't run. He sort of fell down and had me go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make...
It's the Kenny Omega sell.
Yeah, and it was really effective. The chop that took Gable out of the air.
Yeah, when he jumped out of the air and he just chopped him with it and then just decked him with a lariat.
And then he manages to get the ankle lock on him. And then the interesting thing about the ankle lock is that, as strong as Gunther is, he's off his feet. Like, his strength is in his arms.
And I've said this before, my favorite thing about Gunther is, and this goes back to his Walter days as well, is he wrestles like a big man.
Yeah.
But isn't afraid to sell like he's a regular sized man.
Big time.
One of my big issues I have with WWE's big man mentality, like Vince always thinks like, you've got to wrestle like a big man, and that includes don't sell. But that often means it's just like, well, then what's the point of wrestling? You're just sort of like just walking around the ring. Gunther sells.
Yeah.
and he gets over peril and pain and actual, like, you know, adversity within his match. He is still the big scary monster, and he's the ring general, but there's a believability in being able to beat him, and that's what makes him so perfect in when he gets his wins.
Completely agree. And like it carried on from there with they even seeded the finish earlier on when Gable was sent out of the ring and managed to get back in on a 5 count. So it wasn't like he was like almost making the 10 count. It was like a 5 count. He was like, I've got to set myself up, get back in the ring, keep going. There was a takedown which brought out this vicious intensity from Gable that was just wonderful. And then when they do build to the sort of close, they're on the outside. Gunther is pounding on the guy, and I'm like, God, that must hurt. And then he manages to lull Gunther to the corner. He hit that ring post so hard. I almost wish they could have done an effect where the ring post lights turned off, because it was so hard that I felt it, and I was like, God, that must hurt. And then he uses his own momentum to fall backwards into. And I love a move when someone uses a big guy's momentum on him.
It was so great, because he'd already done the deadlift German, which is impressive in its own right. But yeah, he just falls backwards into a German suplex over the barricade. It was spectacular.
And he uses his final energy to get himself back inside of the ring for the 10 count, because he's an athlete and he wants the victory, gets the victory. And it felt like wins and losses mattered in that moment. Do you know what I mean? It's the first person who's ever beaten Gunther on the main roster. Yeah, I know what you're saying with the ticker tape, and I know what you're saying with the idea that it was too much of a celebration, and you know, I was sat there thinking, I have to be honest, I was sat there thinking, like, yeah, but that's not you winning the title. I hope they acknowledge that in some way. However, I think for me, what made it work was the seeding of it earlier on, and then the idea that Gable, as an athlete, was like, I've got to still get the victory.
Well,
and he did it.
This is why I liked the match that they had a couple of weeks back with the 5-minute timer. I know you had your issues with the sort of the structure of that match and the sort of like the logic behind that match, but I thought that was perfectly executed.
The 5-minute bit was great,
and I think I thought the whole thing was perfectly executed, and I think here this is perfectly executed. Outside of a minor quibble that the celebration was almost too much because you didn't win the title, maybe you acted like you did, if I may.
Yeah.
The reason why this was perfectly executed is all off the back of that 5-minute thing, which is where Gunther had underestimated him, and that led to the 5 minutes, and then he took him to his limits, and then Gunther eventually, pissed off, beats him. In this match, Gunther starts off this match trying to get a count-out victory. He does a move, throws him to the outside, count him out, ref. And then Gable gets back in, does some more moves, throws him to the outside, count him out, ref. Because he knows that Gable can probably beat him, so he needs to find ways to not beat him. And in the end, realizes this plan isn't working. So he batters him, batters him, and batters him, and batters him, and still can't pin him. Everything he does, Gable kicks out. Hits him with a bigger move, Gable kicks out. Beats him again, Gable kicks out. He keeps on kicking out. So he's like, fine, I'm going back to plan A. Takes him outside, I'll batter you, and I will batter you outside the ring, then I'll get in the ring, and I'll win this on a count out. Gable outsmarts him, so it's Gable that gets the win by a count out. That is a brilliant bit of storytelling and booking that I think, and I would, build to a rematch for this title where the title can change hands on a count out. Because then you can really build this idea of the 10 count getting back into the ring. And that creates a whole new level of drama because we know that Gable can win that match.
I want them to do a last man standing.
This is not last man standing. It's a very different thing. It's, I think this would be a really fun stipulation to do on this match based around the story you've been telling about the whole count out, clocks, timers. And Gunther's whole thing is about time. It's about it all narratively ties together, and that's why I think this whole segment, this whole build, is just brilliantly perfect.
You're dead on, and that was really great analysis.
Thanks, bud.
You're good at this job, and it was really smart for them to pitch it that way. I think the way you've described it and summed it up there is absolutely excellent. I love that idea of the count out. The reason I was like, yikes, I don't want a last man standing is because these guys wrestle, and last man standing usually has your gimmicks.
A lot of standing.
And I don't want that. I want the wrestling. I want the wrestling and the count and all of that stuff. I'm going to double down on my critique from a couple of weeks ago. There was no need for them to restart the match. Because if Gunther has, you lasted 5 seconds, you didn't beat me. Yeah, but I lasted 5 minutes. You didn't beat me though. Yeah, but I lasted 5 minutes. And then that makes his celebration of winning even better, because your argument there is that Gunther knows he can't beat Gable properly. will he beat him because he started the match again and he beat him.
Mm.
So I just think cut that bit and you have a perfect storyline. I think it is 4.75, and I think that was a stupid logic choice.
The only thing I would say there is that in that version, Gable has beaten him. Then
no,
because they were about to announce that Gable won, and they stop. So because Gunther has to maintain his perfect win-loss record.
They shouldn't because they're in control of it. They don't have to.
Logic booking. Well, obviously, yeah. Like
logic booking.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah. It's pro wrestling.
But
I've
incredible.
I've got nothing but glowing things to say about this, other than Gable's celebration was a bit much. You didn't win the title, mate. Oh, and here's the only thing. Here's the last thing I will say on the celebration, because I get that it's a bit of a tired point at this point already. If he does win the belt, I've already seen him do the big celebration now.
That one. I gave you, and now I'm taking that one's less good. That one's less good analysis.
I think this needed more of a I outsmarted you celebration as opposed to I just won the title celebration.
It's all solved if you don't restart the match after the 5 minutes. But whatever.
Well, I will disagree on that one. But you know what we'll do?
Go on.
Agree to disagree.
No. One of us has to win.
This Judgment Day argued more about who should be in the match backstage.
In their little pearl pool there. The lovely little house.
And Rhea said, quote, "I thought you buried this hatchet last week." And I wrote here, "So did I, Rhea." Cody was getting ready for his interview, and then we cut to Gunther shouting at Imperium, "Stop trying to break this group up." And then Rhodes cut a promo with Saxton, and what he decided was that backstage is not the area to do this in. We should go do this out in front of the Quebec crowd. Mm-hmm. So he took Saxton with him to interview him in front of the Quebec crowd. And he was there just to say, hey, do you know who are great? Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And they're in the main event tonight. And I think you should be in their corner. Thanks, guys. I'm out.
I hated this. I bloody hated it. It started off with him saying JD's looking like a Funko Pop, and I thought that was really funny. Also ice cold. But have you seen JD McDonough's profile photo on WWE.com?
I've not. I'll have a look.
So look, we were having a conversation
last week.
No. Earlier in the office. I
thought it was about the conversation we had last week about people saying that it looks like Finn Balor with a massive head.
Well, we're getting there. I would almost like you to stop until I preface this, but we were having a conversation about the most attractive wrestlers on the roster. Not started by me, started by Andrew Datson.
Of course it was.
And then I'm scrolling down.
Horniest man alive.
I'm scrolling down and I'm like, buddy, I don't think it's fair to say that you have a big square head. But that photo that they've got for him on his WWE.com profile, show the people, is just a little bit mean, I think.
Honestly, lads. Have a rethink of that one.
Get him a new one. He's there every week. But yeah, then Cody comes out and he has this whole it's this whole thing. I think what it was this idea that they were building to have the walkout moment and then the gigantic, because you can do that shot from the entranceway where you get to see the wrestlers POV and they walk out and this huge arena full of people screaming for them and what that looks like. But the crowd was sort of like, yeah. And it wasn't Cody.
It's because it's not Sammy and KO.
It's not Sammy and KO. It's Cody, and they did respond to him in a big way when he came out later on. But like there was, the moment didn't feel as like, oh my god, as
he had to ask the crowd to be into this more than they were.
Right? Because why? It was a bloody interview with Byron Saxton. Like it wasn't a big deal.
Dude, you got to fill 3 hours somehow.
Yeah, well, you do. WrestleMania is really far away, is what I wrote down.
We got a video promo from Shinsuke Nakamura revealing what he lost in translation into Seth's ear last week. And it turns out what he whispered to Seth last week was, I know about your back.
We all know about it. He wrestles topless. We've all seen it.
Yeah, with his little Riley Reid tattoo that he's got. And just because look.
We'll talk about the tattoo. Carry on.
He talks about how Seth has a bad back. And they show lots of video clips of Seth with a very bad back and a lot of ouchy back bumps that he takes. But it's both metaphorical and physical because his back is breaking physically and his back is breaking metaphorically because he is crumbling under the pressure of being the world heavyweight champion. This was a great video package. it almost felt like WWE saw the in-ring segment last week and were like, do you know what we should do? A pre-tape.
Yeah.
And just let him cut the promo in Japanese and we'll put subtitles up.
Yeah.
This was way better for it. It was shot brilliantly.
Yeah.
It was really effective. It was moody. It was impactful. And this was legit cool.
Yeah.
This was so cool for Shinsuke Nakamura.
I thought this was tremendous. I thought it was a really excellent, effective use of Shinsuke Nakamura because his performance style, his delivery style almost doesn't lend itself to the live promo or the backstage interview because he speaks quietly but also with a very heavy accent with also a bit of a lisp. So like there's it's kind of sometimes, especially when it's not his first language, a little bit hard to fully follow what he's saying. So by allowing him to lean into speaking his own language and trusting that your audience can read, it was really powerful and impactful and gripping. Like when Asuka and Io would cut promos on each other in Japanese, it just really works. It was also nice to see him look fully comfortable and fully able to luxuriate in the time that they can then edit the promo down so that it feels snappy, that it feels pacey. And I thought the content of what he was saying was really amazing and really insidious is a word I would use. And it really explained why why Seth would panic. I have a similar tattoo.
Yes.
The tattoo I have on my back is the kanji for courage, which is one of the it also, so it's yu and ki, which means spirit and energy in the way that is in the courage. But that character for courage is in the Bushido, which is the samurai code, the way of the warrior, which is what Seth has on his back. So first of all, I felt called out when he's like, "We need to. I know about the problem with your back. This tattoo." What also felt, he knows about the literal injury of the back, but also how Seth can't live up to that code. Almost like the idea of like, I as a Japanese person, and there was a beautiful shot as he turned around of the tattoo as well. So like, it's almost like I as a Japanese person know about this in a way that you as an American can't really ever understand or live up to. And I don't know if that was the real purpose of it or the direct, but it was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
And I will say, 2008 was a long time ago. I was 18. I thought it looked nice, so I had it tattooed on me.
We've all got tattoos that we got when we were 18. Mine is on my arm.
Yeah. I've thought about getting the rest to go all the way up, but then I would have liked Riley Reid. So it would be.
Also, if anyone is watching this live and you are at work and you do not know who Riley Reid is, I would not Google this.
She's not the person who hosts Countdown.
No. I would not Google that while you're at work.
Yeah.
I thought this video promo was excellent.
Unreal.
And they actually announced it's Seth versus Nakamura at Payback.
Do you think there's a chance he wins?
No.
Okay.
I
agree.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No, because he's going to lose and then it's back to the mid-card with him. Or, worse yet, they'll do another match. And then it's back to the mid-card with him. Well, Seth cut a return promo later on in the show. Might as well talk about that now.
Okay.
Which... he did it with not Kathy Kelly and said that, like, it was that Seth Rollins promo where he starts off being like, I'm goofy Seth Rollins. I just want to hear the crowd sing my song.
Yeah.
And it's like, and now I'm serious.
There's the whiplash of it.
Yeah. And he goes serious and he talks about how his back does hurt.
Yeah.
He actually has got legit problems with his back at the moment.
Cracks his lumbar spine, which is his lower back.
Yeah. He has really, really hurt his back. And he also said, like, and you brought my family into this, which I never really felt like Nakamura was never like, I'm going to come up to your family.
He said he hurts when you hug your wife. Can I tell you something? I might be
it really hurts when you looked at your kid.
I think I'm a bad person because for me, Rue is the biggest heel in the company. I couldn't care less about this child. They bring her up in every program with Becky and Seth. Like, leave the kid out of it. I don't care. Like, you come after my family. I don't care. Stop using that to get heat. Yeah. Move on.
It is
just because I know that they're a couple.
It's it's cheap heat.
It's very cheap.
It's cute. I don't mind.
Unless Rue is going to end up in a trios match with the two of them, I'm not interested.
Yeah, she will do eventually. We got a promo for John Cena's return on SmackDown, which is next week. It is next week, isn't it?
Yeah. September 1st. Yep. Day before Payback, and then he goes off to India.
Yeah. And then we have...
Do you see the things going around about he's going to do a promo with LA Knight, the idea that people have, and he's going to say something like "fine speech" because he always says "fine speech,"
fine speech,
which is, I think, the 7th move of Doom. Like,
No, I think he's going to do a promo with Grayson Waller and confuse him for The Miz. Like, didn't we have a main event at WrestleMania that one time?
Yeah.
We then got Rhea Ripley. You said Riley Reid for a second. Then we then got Rhea Ripley squashing Candice LeRae dead quick. And she also pulled out her submission that she hasn't done for a little while.
Yeah.
And she won dead quick. This is what we said was going to happen with Indy and Candice. Like, this is what Indy and Candice are there for. They're the friends of Raquel Rodriguez. It's just so Rhea can have some stepping stones before she gets to the final boss of Raquel. And after the match, Raquel came out on a crutch. And you could tell that she wasn't really hurt because Raquel's a bad actor. And she was sort of hobbling along, revealed that it's all a ruse. They had a brawl. And Raquel announces they're going to have a match at Payback.
Do you remember when they did that promo about how much Candice believes in fairies?
Yes.
I just thought about that as she was coming down to the ring. I was like, Christ, that was a thing that happened.
Yeah.
We saw a little flavor here of what they could do if they were given time to go. But I understand Rhea needs to look dominant. I've actually seen an UltraChat someone sent in that sort of talks about this. So I'm going to save my big soapbox speech for that. But the way Rhea pulled her into that submission was lovely, gal.
It was very good.
And it took a lot of core strength from them both. So I'm like, props to you there.
Also, it's very, announcing lots of matches for a pay-per-view that's in 2 weeks' time. What a house show. Anyway, we've got
But it's not in Wembley Stadium!
I'm trying
You little troll.
I am trolling you there. We've got a recap of LA Knight and Miz from SmackDown. It's almost like they've been telling stories over a few weeks and then just announce the matches, which is, what happens in all of wrestling.
Biggest show in history!
Dude, it's the way that wrestling works. I'm just saying. I'm saying what we're all thinking. We've got a recap of... Tell me when I'm telling lies. We've got Where is the lie? We've got a recap of LA Knight and Miz from SmackDown, and then Ciampa cut a promo backstage where he referenced that you need to do it yourself. So, Authors of Pain returning.
Again, a great promo.
It was a very, very good promo. Of course, that's a reference to DIY, because they're going to be... Vince is not here anymore, so quick, put them back together.
Yeah,
because
before he notices.
Before Vince gets back and stops me.
Yeah.
Put them on. Quickly, put Indy Hartwell in another match. Then we got... Look, I know you didn't like your Cody segment.
Yeah.
I didn't like this segment.
Okay.
And this segment is amazing on paper.
Okay.
And it was executed badly. So, last week, The Miz said that he was going to have a match this week to show that he is a big star and he's a great wrestler and he's going to find the best and brightest talent that he can have, and so he can beat him in the ring and show that he is one of the best wrestlers in WWE. Very, very fine comedy because, it's Akira Tozawa, it's a jobber, it's someone who doesn't win. Lol, Miz, this, that, and the other. And then LA Knight comes out, Miz gets distracted, Akira Tozawa rolls him up, and he gets pinned, and he gets embarrassed, and then LA Knight's like, ha, 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 and Miz is like, whoa, no, I lost to the announcement, and then, comedy ensues. That's not what happened. What happened is that Miz brings out Akira Tozawa, they do some bad comedy in the ring that gets over like a wet fart. An unwelcome fart in a spacesuit was this level of comedy reception that it was getting. And then he had a competitive match with Akira Tozawa that went through a commercial break because LA Knight was on commentary. And then he got distracted by LA Knight and got beaten by Akira Tozawa. And the comments were like, I can't believe Akira Tozawa won. I was like, why? He got loads of offense in on The Miz. Like, this was a competitive match against him. I'm unsurprised that he won. This really could
cruiserweight champion.
This really could have gone either way. And that's it. So, like, you had it there, but you beefed it in one key element of it, which is the actual punchline of the comedy. And you were talking about stand-up comedy earlier. Was that on WrestleTalk Extra?
I think it was on WrestleTalk Extra.
We've recorded so many things together today. If you have a comedy piece and you beef the punchline, everything about it then is bad.
Yes. Yeah. I think the point you made there about it being great on paper is probably a better reflection of it than I have given it credit for, because I probably was thinking more about the story than I was about the match, so it didn't really bother me that much. Because something that was really interesting to me is what LA Knight was saying on commentary, because he was talking about how The Miz wanted to be what LA Knight's become, and that's why he has the beef. There was this whole idea of Miz saying, like, oh, you didn't show me respect, you didn't shake my hand, like all of that stuff. And then, which is true, because, like, the Miz had a really hard time entering the company and all that. It's well documented. The idea that, you know, Miz wanted to, we know, I think part of the reason I have such patience and such time for the Miz and such appreciation for what he's managed to achieve, the 2-time Grand Slam champion, as I always like to parrot, is because he really eats, sleeps, and breathes wrestling. I think he really loves wrestling. We know this because he was a reality star first on The Real World, and his gimmick on the reality show was, I want to be a pro wrestler one day. I want to be WWE champion. And when we all dream about being a wrestler, when we're kids and we dream and we all do it,
I was going to be the third brother of destruction.
Why do you think I enjoy holding this so much? It's because this is the closest I'm ever going to get to holding a title in the air. Like, it is, we don't dream of becoming Akira Tozawa with respect to Akira Tozawa. As in the context they use him in WWE, I recognize that he's a champion the world over. We go in dreaming of getting that LA Knight reaction. Our music hits and people scream for us. And in Miz's mind, and he mentioned it here, 2-time Grand Slam champion. He's won all these belts over and over again. And even with all of Miz's accomplishments, he was never able to get the crowd that way. And that I find so compelling.
It's the point I've made on this show several times over, Dan, is that, yeah, he's a 2-time Grand Slam champion, but none of his reigns have meant anything.
Well, this is what's interesting about the show.
That first world title reign, which wasn't very good. Again, which was not his fault. He was booked to be a chump.
But this is the booking thing, and that's where it's like it's them doing it. I think it's respect on the Miz rather than respect on.
I've never said anything negative about that.
He's rubbish.
I've never said he's rubbish. I've never said he's rubbish. I've said he's a perfectly fine 2.5-star wrestler, and that's a good thing to have. That is the respect, because you need those people on the roster. He doesn't get hurt. Do you know why he doesn't get hurt? Because he has 2.5-star matches, and that's great and that's fine, and you need that in your company. I'm a defender of the Miz, if anything. If anything, I'm a defender of the Miz.
Gaslight me,
but
sir.
He is booked in bad storylines and bad segments. And do you remember 2 weeks ago when everyone told me, "Oh, he's back to being serious Miz"? Well, what the fuck was this then? Like, because what
Not me this time.
I told you, I told you then, and I will say it again now. This happens every single time. I'm work rate Miz, I'm serious Miz, and he's back to being comedy bollocks. And it's the same, and that's why you can't take the man seriously when he's trying to do the big serious promo, and I'm a big serious wrestler. Because 2 weeks later, he's doing comedy with Akira Tozawa. And so why should I take him seriously? I can't buy into his serious promos then.
That's fair. I just will never agree with you on this.
But do you agree with me that the comedy here didn't work? And they beefed the punchline hugely?
I don't think the comedy worked, but like, I was far more interested in the story. I wish they'd tell the story better, because I think this is where I struggle to agree with you, is that I think Miz can get it over. I think Miz could do that. I just don't think they let it, because they know he's a reliable hand for a bit of lightness and a bit of good. That's the problem with you being the person that people can rely on, is you get used for all things and you never have that consistency.
I also very much enjoyed more of a Knight, stop me when I'm telling lies, saying like, yeah, congratulations, Miz, you were a background player at WrestleMania for The Rock and John Cena. That is genuinely, the truth, everyone.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is a really interesting and compelling story, and I wish that they would give it the dramatic heft that I think it actually very much has.
I don't even mind that this is a feud over 2 losers. Because LA Knight lost on SmackDown and Miz lost here, and then I have a match to determine who's the bigger loser. I don't even mind that, because the story is they distracted each other into their losses. They're so fixated on each other, which is why it would have worked so much better if this was an Akira Tozawa sneak roll up win.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I nearly skipped an entire segment. Actually, nearly skipped several entire segments. Matt Riddle and had a chat to where they found out we're going to have the Matt and Riddle tag match next week.
McRiddle.
And Rhea argues with Priest. And then Becky Lynch came out for a promo.
Good God, rivalry on cooldown.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is, you got a power card was played on you at SummerSlam, so you can't do the match now on SummerSlam.
Yeah. And rather than blowing it off on the next day with a submission match.
Yeah, sorry, I vetoed your star there, so you can't use Becky Lynch, I'm afraid. It's like, oh no, well, I haven't got anyone else I can book on Raw, so I'm going to book Becky and Trish. And that's now taken my level 4 rivalry into a level 5, and now it's,
stale.
It's now stale.
Yeah.
But also I've got nothing to do the following week, because I need to do something. Oh, put them out. Oh dear, bad reaction. And this crowd, like me in that previous segment, swore at them in the ring.
Oh, I didn't know what they actually said.
They said, we don't give an F.
So I normally what happens is you do the segment. I sort of try my best to wait for you to finish before I interject with my jokes and my feels. But in this one, there's literally no point because what happened was the same as what happened every other week, which was Becky comes out, says a thing, interrupted by Trish and Zoe. They set up a match with either Trish or Zoe, and they move on. In this case, it was a match with Zoe. I'm so frustrated, and it does tie us back into the Judgment Day thing, which is that it hasn't moved on or gone anywhere new or become anything, and it's been 5 months. WrestleMania was April the 1st. They lost the titles, I think, 2 weeks later on Raw. That's where the turn happened, and the story has gone on, and it had moments that I have time and time again given it credit, but it in the meantime, since pretty much Night of Champions / I guess Money in the Bank, which you get an asterisk next to it because that was about Money in the Bank,
and they were in the match. They got to continue their story through the match itself.
We've made it feel fresh and different.
Which is great.
They haven't really gone anywhere with it since we all came to the conclusion that this was ending at SummerSlam, and the matches subsequently stopped being very good. The segments all started to be the same. And I don't blame the crowd for sneaking one in under the radar because no one speaks French.
Yeah, the crowd turned on this
and I
segment.
feel so bad for the women because they're doing their job. They're trying. They're giving it what they can, but they're not. They've been forced to stall.
Becky is literally trying to make lemonade out of lemons. She's got a big old t-shirt.
She's got a t-shirt and it's selling loads.
She's bringing it up as well.
Yeah.
They announced there's going to be Becky versus Zoe in a street fight next week. Prediction: Lita attacks. They do.
We've been predicting that since Night of Champions.
Well, yes, but I think you now do the replay of the match they had last week where Zoe's banned from ringside because you can brawl up and then Lita appears.
Would love it.
I don't know. She's Chekhov's Lita at this point. I feel like you set up that she was going to be part of this story, and then she hasn't been here.
Yeah.
I want to see a bad moonsault. It's all I'm asking for.
I hate that you're right.
Heatless this was. We've got a recap of Piper Niven getting the tag titles last week with Chelsea Green, and then her and Chelsea Green beat the Party Girls very, very quickly.
I simply wrote Christ.
Because you had you're one team there, guys, and you squashed them pretty convincingly.
And I even thought, against my better judgment, I'm actually a little bit getting into their entrance song. And I'll have a little vibe when they come down to the ring. I'm starting to party with them. Well, they've lost now. Never mind.
We then got a recap of Gunther and Gable, and they announced it's going to be Gable versus Kaiser next week. And then with the Seth Rollins promo. So yeah, we'll cover the rest of the show because we've done the main events.
Yeah.
There was, and we'll bring this up in an Ultra Chat in a minute, about 3 minutes of women's wrestling on this card.
That's what I wanted to do with the Ultra Chat.
Save that for the Ultra Chat?
Yeah, I'll go. We'll see what they say because I kind of want to talk about it. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Well, thank you all so much for watching this show, but we've got to shout out some very special people, which are our Patreon PledgeHammers. What's up?
I haven't opened them yet, so I was stalling.
We've got our Patreon PledgeHammer shout-outs now. Tomorrow on the Patreon page, WrestleTalk Extra. Oh, it's SummerSlam 2013. Oh, it is Luke Owen reviewing it, but it's not Ollie Davis. It's not Ollie Davis sitting in the opposite chair as we review SummerSlam 2013.
Who is it?
But who could it be? Who?
It's Matt and Jeff Hardy.
It's only bloody Dan.
It's me.
Dan Layton is going to be on the SummerSlam 2013, and it's your first time properly watching the show.
Yeah, so I'm perennially available. So if they need anyone, they just put me in, and I say yes. But also, I'd never watched SummerSlam 2013 because I moved to London that month, and that was my 1 month of not really paying attention because so much was going on. Very interesting program.
You want to talk about a card that's built around 2 matches?
Yep. There you go.
It's literally promoted as, folks, this is a 2-match card. I'm sorry that there are 4 other matches that you've got to sit through, but do bear with us. The good stuff is coming. But thank you all so much for being our wonderful PledgeHammers over on Patreon. And we're going to shout out some of those with the $25 and above, like this fine folk, the Hurricane, Gregory Helms. But perhaps we should also shout out our wonderful moderating team.
I absolutely think we should.
Andy,
CJ,
Gary,
Ian,
James,
Jay,
John,
Les,
Rob,
and of course,
Mod Mother
Jenna. Thank you so much, team. You do an astoundingly good job, and we appreciate absolutely everything you do.
It sounds like I am blowing smoke when I say this, but legit, we cannot do this job without our moderating team. So please do give your flowers to the moderating team.
Yes.
They're a wonderful group of people, and we love them very, very dearly.
And Andy has popped in the little mods chat to let us know that he's ran down the cards, and the chatter was 100% correct.
Actually,
there has only been one Raw without Judgment Day in since the main event of June.
Is
19.
nuts. So we'll run them down now, in fact. So 19th of June, it's Kevin, Cody, and Sammy versus Judgment Day. 26th of June was Cody versus Priest. 3rd was Seth versus Dominic. So that's because someone said it was the KO and Cody. You can add Seth in there.
Seth is a part of this. Yeah.
Seth versus Dominic. 10th of July was KO, Sammy, and Seth versus Judgment Day. 17th was KO and Sammy versus the Judgment Day. 24th of July was Dominic versus Sammy. 31st of July was Sammy and Seth versus Judgment Day. 7th of August was Cody, Seth, and Nakamura versus Judgment Day. The 14th was Cody versus Finn. The 21st of August was Cody, Kevin, and Sammy versus Judgment Day. The only one in there which was not was like on 24th of July it was Dominic versus Sammy, and it was not the main event.
It still was on it, wasn't it?
We're still there,
but
it was not the actual main event of the show. So
yeah,
I guess that is why some people think this might be a touch stale.
Yes.
Also, please, what would you have scored Raw?
Oh, I give it a thumbs up. I had a really good time. I think this third hour was the weakest. And I think as we look at the Judgment Day segments as a whole, I do completely agree with where you're at. But I thought that Gunther and Gable match was so good. I loved the Nakamura promo. I was having a really good time with the show, so it was a thumbs up for me. I enjoyed myself.
Thumbs in the middle for me.
Yeah.
This is a proper mid-show. This is a proper Triple H building show.
Oh, it was great.
These shows happen, and I don't mind.
Oh,
them.
and it had the opening segment. I wanted to cry. I loved it. I had a great time.
I don't mind a building show.
Yeah.
Building shows you need building shows. That's how you build to pay-per-view. So I don't mind this being a building show.
You've changed your tune.
Since when?
Shows don't need build.
That is. Oh, Daniel. Later, I will call you by your real name if you are not careful. That is not what I said. Now who's gaslighting? Me. Do you want to apologize?
No. No.
I'll apologize for you then. Sorry, Luke, that I lied about your thoughts on wrestling. That's okay, Dan. I forgive you. Getting the rest of your Ultra Chats to, what do we call them? Alpha Chats.
Alpha Chats.
To WrestleTalk.com/support. Ding, ding, ding. This is your final call. And Kevin that kicks us off here. Oh, no, we've already done that, Kevin.
We've done Kevin.
Kurto here. So,
here we go.
Under 3 minutes of women's wrestling on a 3-hour show is beyond bad. 27 minutes of women's wrestling for Rhea on Raw and pay-per-view since becoming the champion. And that is BS. Even Sheeta will have had more minutes after this week, and she won it on August 2nd. What's those that say about WWE?
Your last sentence, I'm going to stop turning it into a WWE versus AEW thing. It's a women's wrestling thing overall. I'm not having it be...
No, okay, so I agree with that.
Yeah.
There is one company that gets there's no one taking signs to Raw that say book the women's division better.
That's because
there should be.
Well, yeah, but I think this is the interesting thing is in this show we had 3 separate women's programs: Trish and Becky, Rhea and Raquel, the tag division. So the programs. Oh, look,
but that's the book.
My point that I'm trying to make is it's almost like, well, much like on Dynamite, it's like, well, we made this the main event of Dynamite 200, and that's appropriate. And see, we care. And here, it's like, well, we have 3 different segments. See, we care. That's not good enough. Like, it's not. I mean, there's other. The men's division gets booked badly too. It's not a question of that. It is more of a question of trying to do it. And I think what's really interesting specifically about Rhea, and what I think your point here is so interesting, and thank you for doing the maths on it. 27 minutes of women's wrestling for Rhea on Raw and pay-per-view since becoming champion.
Now, some of that is injury.
Some of that is
but
injury.
She was working house shows.
However, what's super interesting about that is, and I saw a tweet, so I want to read the tweet because it is very accurate.
Your phone is so fancy.
It's massive and it's gold.
It's so fancy.
I know.
It's massive.
Bougie. I know, put a cage on it so that people can see how fancy it is. If I had a case on it, you wouldn't tell me it was fancy.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Because my phone doesn't feel as fancy.
I like people to know. Well, nothing. I mean, hello.
Look at like just my little phone here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? 1 camera? I've got 3, mate.
Oh, wait, what do you need 3 cameras for?
Really big zoom.
Entirely a sex tape.
So the tweet here is from at Seahawk, which says WWE introduced a dominant, untouchable women's champion at a time where people are pushing for more TV time for women's wrestlers. I think Rhea being a bulldozer is great, but I get the desire for it to be the other way. And I think that's a really pertinent way of putting it. You've got Rhea, who they want to build as this absolute beast of a champion who can dominate and really like knock everybody out, knock out all comers. At the same time, we, as you are quite rightly pointing out, are looking for far more than 3 minutes of women's wrestling on the show. Like, we want these people to have... We have Candice LeRae here in this show, who could have a great match if they wanted to. They could go for a long time. And the prime example of how you do that well is everybody's favorite, one guess, Gunther, right? Gunther. Tell me Gunther is not a dominant champion, right? And you do it by having long matches where he looks vulnerable, but ultimately wins because he's a monster. Do you think Gunther's not a monster because every now and again he sells?
Absolutely not.
I
thought it was a rhetorical question.
No, that was because I knew the answer this time.
Yeah.
Remember last week when I tried to do a question and I completely failed because it turns out Ric Flair problematic. Yeah. But this one I knew, right? We like Gunther.
Gunther's great. He's a perfect wrestler.
Swinging a hit for Dan Layton this time. But yeah, so that's your prime example. And I think you could still have Rhea be this big dominant champion in a division that gets other people over, that has decent programs that you believe in. You've got the roster, you've got the talent. AEW, WWE, both of you have the talent. They are not the question. The question is the time you give them and how effectively you use it. And that, for me, is what is the most frustrating. But I do fully take your point about... it is, and your point, as echoed, AEW is the one currently with the sign in the audience. That's because Give Divas a Chance happened already. So they've already had that heat. We need to keep the heat on them.
It was 10 years ago.
It wasn't. It was 2015.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I know. But
10 years is an exaggeration.
Yeah, but it's still a while ago. But it is that thing of we need to keep the heat on them. I mean, much in the same way that we've seen with the Women's World Cup. What's happening instead of the Women's World Cup, who sold out stadium after stadium after stadium on Australia, really competitive tournament, really inspiring women. What we're talking about at the moment is the way that the Spanish men behaved. The head of the FA, the coach. Yeah. It's sports across, and there's people who say things like, "Oh, nobody wants to see it, nobody cares about it." Well, it's a case of if you keep having that attitude, the patriarchy wins. And I'm sorry to use the word that everyone hates, but that's kind of what it is. I just think it's about giving them the opportunity, and you have to be better. You just have to be better. And you there being Triple H and Tony Khan, you guys have to be better at the way you choose to utilize your women. There's no reason that Rhea Ripley can't be a Gunther. There's no reason that a Hikaru Shida can't be winning that championship in a huge program with Tony Storm that culminates at Wembley Stadium.
Dan, I echo everything you just said, folks, and I agree wholeheartedly.
Except
no, there's no except there. No, I agree.
Normally you have an except.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I was actually going to say I feel that, I think that WWE are on a precipice of a Give Divas a Chance moment.
I feel it. Yeah,
I really feel like they are getting to that point.
I agree.
And it almost, maybe I'm going to put my cynical hat on for a second, if I may. I'm putting on my Triple H cynical hat, the great politica, the greatest politica in wrestling history. And he is the greatest politica. He won. So I'm going to put on my cynical hat here. He's waiting for that moment.
To utilize it.
Because then he's giving the fans what they want.
That's good politics.
That's good
right there. That is business.
That is best for business right there. That is brilliant politics.
Bring back Stephanie McMahon.
Tarila Marquez said, I just don't want Gunther to lose the title. Not now, because I hope that he's still got it when I see him live at the end of October.
I think it would be more effective to keep it going.
I think he's retaining for a while.
I don't think his run is stale yet.
Garman Rose says, felt this week's Raw was a bit rinse and repeat from last week, needing to fill a week till till next week's Go Home show. On to important stuff. When are we getting Dan's video essay on the good and bad tropes of the mise en scène in the production of a wrestling TV show?
I was saying this to Tempo because Tempo was talking about how he wants all of his wrestling shows to be gritty and like not sleek and not even in HD. And like someone was replying being like, oh, like ROH production where the audio peaks and all this stuff. And on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, I think things should be gritty. I like the darkness of AEW, but I like the big scale feel of the pay-per-view events. Nobody deserves audio as bad as ROH in the mid-noughties. Nobody wants bad audio. You might think you do, you don't. I have a lot of feelings about that.
I at the weekend went to see the preview cut of Ghostbusters, which was a beta max VHS tape that Jason Reitman found in his the attic when they were doing research for Ghostbusters Afterlife. And it was the preview cut. It was the cut that was shown to like Sony executives and a small test audience. And so it's like unfinished effects. It's alternate takes. There's no music in it whatsoever because the score hadn't been done yet. Scenes are slightly different because they haven't quite like tightened the scenes up. A fascinating thing. It also meant that I was watching it on a VHS effectively. Like they plugged in a VHS and they screened a VHS onto a big screen and it looked terrible. And I loved it. And I'm not a HD guy. I
like things to be clean.
Well, the thing is though, when like Blu-ray came out, my eyes looked. I was like, well, that looks the same as DVD does.
Wow!
And like, I bought. People had to pop at me on Twitter once because I didn't have a HD TV until like 2 years ago. You
had a flat 4x3 square.
I had a flat screen TV that from like the mid 2000s that I'd sort of held on to because it worked perfectly fine and it had HDMI ports. Like, what more do you need? And I could plug my PlayStation into that. It's grand. So then I've under Twitter pressure bought a HD TV and I was like, I'm just watching Sunday Brunch. Like I don't need to see Tim and Simon in glorious HD. And even then I've not noticed a difference. And people are, I'm not the guy who's like, I need to get this on 4K Blu-ray because I don't see the difference because it's just not my thing. I'm quite happy to watch things on VHS and actually in some ways kind of prefer it. And I kind of agree with what Tempo was saying, that sort of gritty VHS vibe. I'm a big fan of it.
I think you can have a gritty vibe while still, I think there is a massive difference in standard and HD. All you have to do is go and watch a football match from when we thought things were quite like modern, like in like 2012 and be like, this is ugly buggly.
Dude, I watched the football at the weekend, and it looks the same as it did when I saw it 10
and I always thought when I put a Blu-ray and so there's a crispness to it. There's almost like a color pop that I can see. Maybe I'm just already specialized.
So probably because my eyes are bad.
Yeah, maybe you have some glasses, and then we'll have this conversation again.
I don't know because I got them tested recently. I've still got 20/20 vision.
Good for you.
Thank you very much. Anyway, Ryan Marshall here says, if Gunther and Gable go to Payback, do you do a 2 out of 3 falls match or an Iron Man match? Because the longer the more they fight, and that's the better. Those chops, mon Dieu. Mon Dieu.
Terry's spitting upstairs.
Monge too. I don't think you do the Iron Man match because I don't think you want to be pinning Gunther. Like if you're going to pin Gunther, you just want to do it the once. So you've pinned Gunther. And so like you could do an Iron Man match where you just do lots of countouts victories, I suppose. But maybe that.
You could just have a really long singles match.
Yeah, or 2 out of 3 falls match, and one of them is a count out. I suppose you could do that. Her Business too says, I feel like since Sammy and Cody lost to Roman, they keep giving them empty feel-good wins on Raw. Sammy and KO have done nothing since WrestleMania, and I have no clue what to do now with Cody. Yeah, I agree. Gold said, I'd love to see Chad win the IC title, but I get the feeling he's just going to lose a rematch at Payback. Don't see Gunther dropping into the title until Mania. Well, he certainly isn't dropping the title at Payback because that's not beating the Honky Tonk Man's record.
Oh, but wouldn't it be quite something, though, if they have built up this idea of him getting the record, and after we've seen Bianca do it, after we've seen Roman do it, and then he didn't get it? I think I don't prefer it, but...
Yeah. I'd be going to call him to the Honky Tonk Man. Just have him come in so you can just give him a chop.
On September 7th?
Yeah.
One final bit. I mean, that would be quite funny.
Kid Cuddy here says, I enjoyed last night's Raw. Hopefully you guys did it as well. Much love. Much love to you. Thank you very, very much for your message. Hurt Business 2 says, anyone else notice how LA Knight is getting the reactions Cody and Seth used to get? I think they're afraid to put LA Knight in the title match with Seth because the crowd won't turn on Seth. Also, they're on different brands. That was my addition.
I was going to say they appeared to be on the same show to me this week, Luke. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's because he's cross-brand feuding. LA Knight, like, he is uber duper over. I mean, but for me, he's Zack Ryder at the moment. This is an LA Knight push that I will believe it when I see it, and I'm not seeing.
Well, he's got to go through the Miz first. Everyone has to.
Yeah. If it wasn't The Miz, it'd be Baron Corbin. Ashley Acid is a Memberg for 6 months in a row. Thank you very much. And Mr. Higglesby, who's been a Memberg for 22 months in a row, says it's almost been 2 years of being a Memberg. Love your content, lads. KO and Sammy are back. Also, Moxley's going on that vacation. Also, when is Moxley going on that vacation, or have we given up on that? Yeah, whatever happened to his vacation?
He got to go to Japan and have things put in his head. That's his idea of a vacation.
I suppose, yeah. Joe, the Welsh Viking, rather, has been a member for 2 months in a row. And Matt Var has said, to follow up on my chat message from earlier, Cage Matt said since June 19th, there have been 10 matches on Raw, which involved the Judgment Day members and a combination of Sammy, KO, Cody, and friends. There's been one show, there's a show bar one, 9 weeks of similar matches, what's left. And that is absolutely bang on correct, which we went through earlier. Man, crikey, you look at that. And I wonder, I'd actually be very curious to know how many of those Judgment Day actually won.
Yeah, I don't think it's any.
I think there is one.
1 or 2, maybe.
Maybe 1 or 2. Because I'm pretty sure, I think in that 17th of July one, KO and Sammy might have lost to Dom and Priest. And obviously, I think Dom beat Sammy.
Well, they didn't beat any in June because that was ahead of Money in the Bank. They didn't.
Because they kept beating Priest.
Yeah. Sammy didn't win the NXT title. So.
Yep, there's that one.
Yeah, who knows?
But Sammy and Seth, I'm pretty sure, won. It's obviously Cody, Seth, and Nakamura won. Cody won. Cody, Kevin, and Sammy won last week. They won again here. Like they lose a lot. But that's kind of always been the story of Judgment Day. Like, you know, I've quite famed on this channel for mocking the Judgment Day and Edge feud, because Edge won every single one of the matches they had, bar one, which Edge lost himself. Yeah. Like, because he quit. He quit because they were going to beat up Beth Phoenix. And every now and again I was like, when is Edge going to put over the Judgment Day? And it turns out the answer was never. Well, that is going to do it for this.
Isn't. We got one more.
We got one more. 35 Antonio said, people making the Lex Luger comparison do not know how bad it was. That is very, very true. A, Match had a stip that if Lex loses, he can never challenge for the title again. B, knowing that, Lex counted along with the referee. Chad, on the other hand, outsmarted and survived Gunther, and Chad does mouth, sit on that because I'm coming back for more, and that title is coming back with me on the ramp. I think, I like to think the reason Seth is becoming more and more over the top is because he's overcompensating and masking how broken physically and mentally he's become.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, I like the idea that Chad is winning that, knowing is like, well, I might as well just take this win because that win means that I get to ask for another match, kind of thing. Like, yeah, I liked it. I like the ending.
Apparently, Big MGM has just said that they did win one of the 6-man tag matches.
Good for them.
Where there was a fight backstage. We've ended the poll and not the stream, and we have got a split result here. 46% thumbs up, 45% thumbs in the middle.
Wow, okay. What was I smoking this morning?
Yeah, like that is literally like bang on half and half, and then the rest is thumbs down. But yeah, thank you all so much. That's it. Thank you all for watching this episode of Raw. Please do press the subscribe button. This is your first time here. Give us a little thumbs up as well. Leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode of Monday Night Raw, and we'll be back on Thursday. Yes, Thursday for Dynamite. We'll also have our AEW All-In predictions going up on Friday. On Saturday, there will be the SmackDown podcast. Might be something else on Friday, TBD, or TBA, TBC, all of them. And then on Sunday,
it's all in, mate.
We're all in.
Yeah.
There's
what we do on Sunday?
Yeah, well, I was trying to think if there's any content going up. There isn't. We're all busy at All In. And we're also going to be going to, on Saturday as well, we're going to Defy in the afternoon. We might be going to the Progress show as well, and then going to the Rev Pro show in the evening. And then, on Sunday, it's AEW All In at Wembley Stadium. And then on Monday, myself and Ollie Davis will be doing a full review of AEW All In, which will have no notes because we'll be watching the show. Yeah. And it will basically be what it was like being there.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait.
It's come around, doesn't it?
It really has come around, and I'm really, really thrilled about it. So please do. We just had a chat come in who's just said, hello, you beautiful people. Hope you're having a great day. Annoyingly, I'm working this weekend, which I am missing all in.
No. We'll watch it for you.
We'll watch it for you, Stephen Costa. Big love to you as well. Thank you all so much for watching. We will see you on Thursday for the Dynamite review. I've been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been the Professor, the Truth, Dan Layton. Jam that jam.